All right. Hi, everybody. Hopefully the sound is okay and everybody can hear me. My name is Carrie. I am City Market's Assistant Outreach and Education Manager, the one who's been sending you all of the emails. Super excited for tonight's class on chicken breakdown, a skill that I want to learn, so I'm sure going to learn a lot tonight too. This is the only time that you'll see me on screen. After this, I'm going to go behind the scenes and be in charge of the Q&A box. I'll put an announcement into that so you can see where that is and how to access it. But if at any point you have a question during tonight's class, a comment, anything that you want our instructor, Chef Michael Klaus, to know, you can type that into the Q&A box and I will see that and pass it along. So you hear my voice asking questions, you just won't see me on screen. If you're joining us a little bit late, you can hit live. It's down at the bottom near the play pause button, and that will catch you up to where we are live rather than making you start from the very beginning of the video. We are recording this and we'll release it on our website at a later date. So if you miss anything, don't worry, you will be able to catch back up. Let's see, what else? I think that's really it from me. If you have questions at any point, go ahead and put those into the chat and I will see them. And I think without further ado, I'll turn things over to our instructor tonight, Chef Michael Klaus, who is our executive chef here at City Market.
Hi, everybody. I'm Chef Michael Klaus. I'm the executive chef of City Market on your River Co-op. Tonight's an exciting class for me. Well, I guess first, just to start, I guess if you are having problems hearing me or you can't hear me, just throw it in the chat so we can fix it up. So exciting class for me, breaking down a chicken, something I've been doing for years. So just sort of comes second nature, but excited to be able to share some techniques. I think everyone got emailed a packet prior. There's a few recipes in there that are chicken related: grilled chicken, roasted chicken, whole roasted chicken, chicken stock. I threw a fun one in there, chicken chilaquiles, which I'll show you how to make. We're pretty much going to go over all of those. So we got a lot to cover, which is exciting. Before we get into the actual breaking down of the chicken, I did break one down earlier, and just so I can show you some of the finished product of some of those recipes, I'm going to get some of those started. So throughout the class, I'll be bouncing back and forth. We have two cameras over right here in the prep station. We have a small burner, and then over, you'll see on the hotline over here, we'll be doing some stuff. So just to show you, it's kind of hard to see underneath all the marinade. I did take a chicken apart earlier, marinated some chicken breasts. I kept the bone in, the rib bone in these. Took the wings off, put the wings in the stock, which I'll show you when we go over to the other camera, and we'll talk more about that in a few minutes. But this has been marinating for about an hour and a half, looking pretty good. So that's the breasts, and then the thighs and the legs, which I separated, which I'll show you how to do in a few minutes. I have that and a nice barbecue marinade. There is a barbecue sauce recipe in the packet as well. Also, just because I'm going to show you some finished stuff later, we're getting into asparagus season, so I have some marinated asparagus and some red onions, which I'll throw on the grill as well, just to kind of get things moving. So I'm going to head over to that side of the kitchen, and we'll get some of these things rolling.
So first, okay, we'll move the camera over to the grill.
Yeah, beautiful. So we got a nice big grill over here. I have a hot side and a low side. Nice hot side here, low side. We're going to slow cook the asparagus. With asparagus, just a non-chicken veggie tip. I love to grill asparagus this time of year, especially on my home grill. I like to choose the big ones for grilling, less chance of them, which I'm sure some of you folks grill at home, especially asparagus. A lot of them fall through the grill. So when I'm grilling, I like to choose the thick ones, less chance of them getting really burnt. Sometimes they get really burnt and they basically can fold them up in your hand. The big ones have a little bit more tooth to them and they definitely grill a lot better. But I do like to grill them on the slow side. We're going to save this pan, save on dishes, and we'll put the other chicken in there. So I just have my legs and thighs. We'll start those on the hot side. We'll go back and forth and keep an eye on them. Go back and forth here. We'll get them nice and caramel. and then we'll probably move them over to the slow side to finish grilling. Look at that. Quick grilling tip, if you throw your protein or veggie on the grill and you start to get a lot of flame, it's okay to pick it up and move it around. I'm sure a lot of you have experienced maybe a grill flare up here and there. This grill's nice and hot. So I'm going to turn it down just a bit. I'm getting some good color on it already. Put that there. We'll move over here. Good. Mm-hmm. So I'm just going to reuse the pan that I had the asparagus in. I have the chicken breast. You'll see underneath. Rib bone is still on there. It's kind of nice sometimes with the roasted chicken to keep the rib bone on. You don't have to. I'm going to take a little bit more just because this is a really nice marinade. Then we're going to put this in the oven. I have the oven at 425. We'll crank that up so we can go back to that later. Show you some of the finished stuff. Check the chicken over here. Getting some nice color. Let's turn the grill down. We'll move our asparagus over a little bit. Since we're going to be working on breaking down some chickens, we're not going to give this grilled chicken full attention. So I'm just going to move it over here on the slow side and let it slow cook for a little bit so we don't have to keep going back and forth to it. Any questions so far about it?
No questions so far, just a couple comments on sound issues, so helping them out. And also, if people want to tell us where they're watching from, that's always exciting.
Yeah, and also, does anyone have a chicken there with them? There's going to be.
I always say not really a cook along with you, just because we've prepped so much ahead of time. But
you never know.
Maybe someone's going to try to break one down with you. Yeah.
Yeah, and you may have saw over there when we were putting the chicken in the oven. I have some cooked chickens already too, which I'm going to show you how to break down the chicken that I roasted, and then some rotisserie chickens too. We sell rotisserie chickens down at the market, which we brine overnight, and they're rotisserie cooked. They're cooked up, you know. As you know, if you've ever picked out a rotisserie chicken, they're cooked pretty well and they really fall apart because of the brine and the slow cooking process. So they're a little different to break down than a chicken that you may just roast in the oven like we did before. So I think we may just get right into it.
Are you a glove wearing person when handling raw?
I was just going to tell you about that. I am not when handling raw chicken, just because when you do handle raw poultry, you're pretty much washing everything after anyway, and it's recommended to cook it to 165 degrees. So when you're dealing with the chicken, you know, especially in, you know, the restaurant world that I come from, gloves almost can be almost the wrong thing to use sometimes, just because you accidentally touch something here or there, or whatever, because you feel that safety of having the glove on. So for me, I like the raw, you know, no gloves.
A good hand wash.
Raw hands on raw chicken, and then a good wash and some sanitize after. Change the cutting board, all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to take this out. We got this chicken from downstairs. Sometimes they'll come with the giblets inside. There'll be a bag that has all the stuff. Sometimes there's a neck in there. As you can see, we have a nice neck. This is a nice Vermont, locally Vermont raised chicken. So we're going to put it out on the cutting board. This over here. So this is a pretty large chicken. I guess you would call it a roaster. It's probably close to around 4 pounds. There's broilers, fryers, and roasters. Broilers are usually the smallest, somewhere between, you know, around 2.5 pounds. Then the fryers, 2.5 to 3 pounds, also on the small side. And then the roasters, which are usually much larger. Why the smaller chickens? Because if you're grilling it, frying it, You want a smaller bird because it's gonna, if you use a big bird like this to make fried chicken or chicken on the grill, it's gonna take you a lot longer to cook it. So generally what I would do is either another cooking tip, either if you really want to watch it on the grill, you would, move it back and forth to the hot or slow cook it on the slow side. Like I said, it'll probably take a lot longer. Some people pre-roast the chicken that they may want to put on the grill and then just finish it on the grill to get the nice caramelization and smoke flavor, or vice versa. If you don't have a lot of time, you can mark it on the grill and then bring it in the house and finish it in the oven. So lots of options.
Let me know if.
And I can see my chicken.
Yeah, I was saying,
the chicken from over here. It's looking good. I put it on the slow side.
Yep.
We're going to head back over there in a few minutes. So, not sure how many people we have, but I guess this is generally where I ask how many of you broke down a chicken before. So if some of you want to throw in the chat if it's your first time or if you've ever broken down a chicken before. There's lots of, we're going to show you. We're going to do one bird and then I'm going to show you some cooked ones, but there's also lots of videos. We're going to have this video on there, but there's tons of videos on how to cut up chickens. Everyone does it a little differently, but we'll get right into it unless there's any questions.
No questions in through yet.
Okay.
The other thing too to keep in mind, everybody, is that you're watching at about a 30-second delay from us. So if you've submitted a question and you're like, why haven't I gotten to it yet? Know that by the time you submit it to us seeing it, to us answering it, it just is a little bit of a delay. So
generally looking at the chicken, I'm going to inspect it a little bit. This looks good. It's got all the parts. Sometimes you'll get one when it says no wing. It doesn't necessarily mean, it's still going to have this portion. Generally, when it says no wing, it just doesn't have the little wing tip on it, but it will still have the wings, the actual wings. So I like to, like I said, inspect it, see if there's any excess fat. I'll just do a little trimming, a little trim here. Some folks like to leave the little tip on. I'll take it off for today. See that? And then we'll just look around, see if there's any more excess fat on the bird. There's a little bit here. You can always do it after as well. So this is looking good. Said this is a nice sized bird.
If people don't have a boning knife like you have one there, should they go with chef's knife or paring knife?
Really depending. Sometimes there's like smaller 8-inch chef knives that come with the, sometimes if you get like a 3-piece set or a butcher block, the chef knives aren't huge like this one here. So sometimes the chef knives have like a 8-inch blade, maybe even a 10-inch if you're comfortable with it. By all means do that. Paring knife is probably a little easier if you're comfortable with that. If it's a true paring knife, like a really tiny one, then it may be a little harder for some of the longer cuts. Shears also work really well for some of these things, especially when you're separating wings off, or sometimes you could probably do the whole chicken with shears. I'm going to show you how to do a knife, and then we'll sanitize everything. But when I cut up a rotisserie chicken or a cooked chicken, I use the shears a lot. But a lot of people use shears for trimming the whole bird. Especially these are just kitchen utility, but they sell poultry shears, which sometimes they have a little bend in them, and it just makes them a little sharper, and it's easier to get into some of the nooks and crannies. So I'm going to start by taking the wings off, and you can really, if it's the first time you've ever done it, you can kind of just feel the chicken. So we're going to take the wings off, then we're going to take the legs off, then we'll separate the leg and the thigh, and then we're going to take the breasts off. So you can really feel where sort of the ball joints are and where you're going to put the cut in. So if you've done this a lot, I'm not sure if you can, it's better to go this way.
That's perfect, yeah.
Yeah, you can do it from the top and cut right in here. And some folks, prefer to do it this way, because if you see here, you can see the joint a little better.
I'm going to zoom in on your hands a little bit.
Yeah.
So that people.
So if you flip it over, it's easy to see. You're going to put the knife in here. If you do a lot of them, being a professional who cuts chickens all the time, sometimes you're so fast you can just you don't need to move the chicken around a lot. But if you don't do it a lot, take your time. Make sure the cuts are as precise as you can get them. If you make a mistake here and there, it's not the end of the world. So I'm going to cut right in here in the joint. I'll start cutting right here, and you'll see with the chicken, you can bend it right off. So unlike a larger animal, if you're butchering like a pig or a cow, you really can't do that because the bones are so much bigger. You can't move them around a lot. Chicken, it's easy. You can almost pull things apart with your hands. So once you sort of make that first incision through some of the connective ligaments and tissues or whatnot, it's really easy to expose some of the joints. And then you literally just go right in. Then we have one, and then we'll go right in on the other side, take the other off. Good, good. Some instances you can leave, when you see this here, you can separate it here with the wing bone on. You'll see they call it a Statler or airline because it has the wing on. They'll call it a Statler or airline breast. That means it has this portion of the wing on. So you would just clip it right here and this would stay on the chicken. And then when you take the breast off, that's attached. And if you go sometimes to a real fancy places, they'll French it and they'll take the skin off and expose just the bone, if you've seen that before.
We're going first timer.
Yeah, yeah. We'll
time.
make another class for advanced. So next, just to show you, we're going to take the leg and thigh off, and you can see it's kind of naturally, we're going to make a cut right in between the breast and the leg. So, and you don't have to cut deep here because it'll just come right off. So we're literally just, you can almost see inside there, we're literally just cutting that small piece of skin. See this here? We're just going to make an incision here. Can you see that?
Yep, I've zoomed in.
Right there. You see it just almost separated everything by itself. We'll do the same here. Just gonna, and you'll see separates it. Just like
make sure your knife is nice and sharp.
Yeah, it helps. So there's a few ways. Some folks, you can grab the breast and the leg and you can break it and you can take both legs off at the same time. If you do that, you can cut down here, but I'm going to show you the other way. But that is another way to do it. You can see the skin here. So if you just make an incision here and put your hand back here and just literally fold it like that, and it'll take both legs and thighs off and just leave you with the breast. You'll see that sometimes in the grocery store, it's the whole breast, both sides, and that's how they do that. They cut it here, break it, and then you get the whole breast as one piece, basically like that. So, but we are going to do it differently. So once you have it out like this, you literally just take your hand and you're gonna just pull it like that. And again, you'll see that? You're exposing the joint right there. So a lot of folks you'll see if you watch videos, they'll go this way, which is fine. Some folks go this way, but then you also sometimes you can miss. There's some good oyster cuts down in here. So some folks, and I'll show you how to do it this way. You make a cut here. We'll start here, and you'll hit the backbone with the knife, and then you just follow the backbone all the way down behind that piece like that. And you'll see this little round piece right here. It's an easier way to pick up that oyster piece right there, which is a nice tender piece of the thigh here. So that, I'll show you the other way is here. Also another way to do it rather than going this side along the backbone. What some folks do is once you have this separated, you make the cut in here this way, and then they just go in between and cut it like this. Also works fine. Sometimes you will miss a little bit of the oyster, depending on experience and how many times you do it. Any questions so far?
No questions so far. I think you're doing such a great job of it.
All right, so we got wings. This is a leg or a whole leg. You'll see this in the store. Leg and thigh connected. So breast is left. So if you feel uncomfortable, sometimes keeping the backbone in helps with the next part. Or you can just pull it off, same as I showed you earlier. You would just cut down through here, but then it sometimes can create a little more of a rocking motion. I will show you on the cook bird how to do it. If you wanted to keep the rib on, the chicken, I'm going to just slide the breast off. If you wanted to keep the rib on the rib meat, you would cut down, take the back off, and then I'll show you when we have a cooked chicken how to cut. But you would essentially, once that piece is off, there's the back side of the breastbone that you just cut like an incision with the knife, and you just break it, and then you slice right through it. If you wanted to keep the rib meat on. We're going to take the breast meat off. So we're just going to make that incision along, just like you're carving a turkey. If a lot of you have carved a turkey before, you make that incision, you come down, follow it all the way down. You'll hit the wishbone. Some people like to take the wishbone out. You do lose a little bit if you keep it in, but what I find is you really got to work the knife around there to take it out of a raw piece of chicken. And what a lot of people do is they wind up really jabbing and kind of hacking up the meat inside. So for the amount that you lose, I think it's worth leaving it
just
in.
Extra fingers.
Take it out after it's cooked if you're going to carve. Yeah. And then you just follow down all the way. You'll see there's the bone there where the wing was connected. And then we just cut all the way down. We turn it over. We have the nice breast here. We turn it over. We could take the tender off. You could leave the tender on. It cooks a lot faster than the rest. So I would take it off. And then this is where I would kind of inspect it, feel it a little bit, make sure you didn't pick up any bones. It's possible. Take off a little excess fat, depending on what you're doing. If you're going to grill it or whatnot, you can leave some of this silver skin on there, or you could just take it off. If this gets all wrinkled up because you were working it around a lot and you're like, oh no, where'd the skin go? It's pretty pliable. You can pretty much move it right back to where
rip it off if you're going for
you can rip it off, right? If you're going for boneless, skinless, or you can lift it up, run your finger inside, keep a little bit, just go one side, keep one side connected, and then you can put butter underneath there or some other flavorings. That there. So the other side, same thing. Make that incision.
So you're just kind of following that ridge of
We're
the breast,
following that
right?
ridge of the breastbone all the way down. Then you'll start to hit some of this rib. And then you literally just go all the way down. And once you get into here, see I'm using the bottom of the knife instead of the tip, make some longer cuts so it's less jabbing. And then once you get in, just kind of go there. Turn it over. Looks good. When it's down, you can kind of spread it out with the bottom of the knife. You'll see there's a little bit more of we picked up some of the blood off of the rib. We can trim a little bit of that off. The tender's sticking a little bit. You can just work it off. So we'll keep the tender there. Breast.
How would you cook the tender since you said it cooks so much faster than the breast? Would you do them?
The tenders, I like to skewer them, like ravel them on a skewer, just grill them quickly, or you can saute them in a pan. You could very well, if that's like, well, when am I going to do that? Whatever, I don't want to save it. You could cook it with the breast. Just know that it's a tender. It's kind of like a tenderloin. It's never going to be tough, but it can get dry because it's going to take it's not fully connected, so it's going to cook much faster than the rest of the breast. Quickly, here I'm going to ask maybe just to flip the asparagus and the chicken. There's tongs right over there.
Yeah. Do you want to flip the asparagus too, or just the chicken?
Both would be great. So leg thigh. You can see thigh is here, leg is here. And this is pretty much the same on all the birds. There's some of this fat in here, and you'll see there's a line right here. See this right there? That's where you're going to cut, right along that line. Depending, it's not foolproof. You may run into something. If you have a sharp knife, if you generally cut across that line, you're going to go right through it, which is totally fine. But you can, once you're in there, if you wiggle the knife around about halfway through, if you feel you like hit a bone, if you wiggle it and push it each way, it'll probably work itself right through. So we're going to go right through there. You'll see I give it a little wiggle, and then I'm going to cut right through. See, oh, I got that knuckle. I'll just go a little bit to the left, and we're fine. Sort of the faster you do it, you just go right through. The slower you may run into a little bit here and there. If you do cut through the knuckle like that a little bit, I would recommend just pulling it off, because you don't want that to kind of fall off during cooking. It's not very good to eat. So I'll do the other ones. So that's a good line. Some folks, I'm used to just cutting it straight through the top. You can cut straight through the top. If you kind of look, you know, the leg, same thing. You can kind of feel it right here. If you kind of squeeze it there and then give it there, it goes straight through. So either way works.
So the chicken and the asparagus has been flipped on the grill. So
Thanks. Thank you. So generally, we got, right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So when someone says 8-piece chicken, if you've ever heard that, from a butchery standpoint, it's 2 breasts, 2 legs, 2 thighs, 2 wings. That would be 8-piece.
How would you do?
And it's not like an 8-piece. If you order an 8-piece at KFC, that's not what you may not get that. But from a butchering standpoint, when you say I'm going to butcher it into 8 pieces, those are the 8 pieces.
How would you do the wings if you were trying to get the 2 separate?
Yeah, so we can look at that. So 2 separate wings for buffalo. So taking this off, this is good for the scissors, the shears to cut these off. I got all this for stock. We got a stock pot over there. There's a stock recipe. Same kind of as we took the legs off, you'll see you can see where, if you see here, it's probably hard, but you'll see where this runs down and goes here. And then the other, what we call like the little mini drumstick in your buffalo wings. You can see they meet right here. So just cutting that skin right there. Same, you could just take them and they separate like that. And then you just in between, and you cut right in between. And those are your 2 different wings for buffalo. Some people like to leave them whole if you're making them at home. Take that tip off. There's really no meat on there. You could leave them. If you do leave them whole, they'll probably cook. You know, I would maybe cut that. It may help cook them a little more evenly. And they're a little easier to eat if you wanted to leave it whole. But most folks just cut right in between. Like that. Real quickly, on the thigh. So the thigh has one bone running through the center because you cut it. On the other side, really to take the to make it a boneless thigh, it's really easy. You just take the knife, you make sort of an incision on one side of the bone, an incision on the other side of the bone, and then you can almost take your finger and you can pull it right out. Once you disconnect half of it, you take the knife and you just sort of make a couple small cuts until you see it separate. And then you have a boneless thigh there. So that's pretty easy too.
You make it look easy. I'm sure that
you know, I've worked at places it's nice where you take the thighs after you bone them and you stuff them, roll them, roast them. Yeah, make a little roulade. It doesn't need to be with other meat. You could just put like asparagus and breadcrumbs and cheese and then roll it up. That's a nice dish, something along those lines.
Somebody has asked, do you cut the wishbone in half when cutting through it, as the wishbone has 2 bones on either side?
Oh, when cutting through it? Generally don't cut through it unless you're using the scissors, like off the top. Sometimes it'll break. So if you're in the back, which I may be able to show you, if you're trying to take it out raw, it's the same way you're doing this bone. You just kind of get back underneath and you'll scrape it away so you can kind of get to it and just kind of pull it out. And sometimes you'll break it. That's another thing that, you know, then you break it and like, where's the other piece? So I like to leave it in there, but it's much easier just to come out if you're gonna like want to carve it on a cooked bird, just to pull it out if you really want. But it's a little harder to bring it out whole when it's a raw bird. Takes a little practice. So
yeah, we'd be curious to know in the chat if people want to share if they've never broken down their whole chicken before, if they just want a refresher, let us know what your experience is with this process.
Yeah, so we're going to save this for stock. I have a stock going, but before we put this in there, I'm going to show you a few other things and get some of these recipes going so you can see some of that. So we have all this, and I do have, I'll just quickly show you. So I do have some of this mustard. So we'll throw his breasts and tenders and some, this is
that mustard recipe.
Yeah, the mustard, yeah. So we'll just, I just had the marinade. You could use whatever marinade you want, throw that in there, let that sit for a little bit. And then sort of the same lines. There's not a recipe for this for the barbecue, but it's just sort of the same, some herbs, salt, pepper, a little oil, and some of the barbecue sauce. And then just toss everything else in there. Just use your hands, get in there, move it around, and you can let that sit for 10 minutes or 10 hours.
And it says, I've never cut up a chicken into pieces before. This is new for me. Great. Thanks.
Yeah, and we talked about that. I'll talk to you with my dirty hands for a second. We were talking about that before the class started, and just sort of like the value of getting a whole chicken versus going and getting the pieces. And it's really up to you. You know, if you think you can use the whole bird, then you should buy a whole bird. You know, if you're only going to use half, you know, is it worth it? If you're going to make a good stock or make a good soup, you know, then it may be. But, you know, for some, the whole bird is the way. For some, it's just buying the pieces. You know, I do both myself. When, you know, I know I'm going to be able to use all the pieces, I'll get the whole bird or roast it whole and just sort of eat off of it for a few days. Or if I'm just in a rush and just want something quick for the grill, then I'll just buy breasts or legs and I'll marinate them and grill them and just eat that. The wings, you can like save them, you know, take 2 at a time, throw them in the freezer, then keep adding them as you break down more chickens until you have enough to have a, you know, some wings with the game or however you like to enjoy them. So you can save pieces.
I love the story about how wings used to be like the trash part of the bird. And
yeah, I mean,
there's such a demand for them that they're crazy expensive.
There's a lot of that with a lot of cuts of meats. All right, so I'm going to move some of this. I'm going to go off camera in maybe 20 seconds.
Yep, we're going to mute ourselves, do a quick hand wash and all that good stuff.
I'm back. All right, so if you look over here, we got some nice grilled asparagus. We got some good color on it. It's over here on the slow side. Chicken's looking good. Give it a little tap. If you're not super experienced, thermometer works. Any sort of probe thermometer, you can put it right in there. You know, 165 and you're good. But it's looking really good. I'm going to move it over. I'm actually going to turn the grill up a bit. Keep it here on the bottom. Said it's looking really good. This one could cook a little more. That one's there. It's looking good. In a minute or two, once we get through some of the other pieces of chicken, maybe myself or Carrie can come over and baste some of this chicken with some of the barbecue sauce, start to get that glaze on it. It'll look really good. I'm going to turn this side off because it's warm enough. Our asparagus is looking good. It's nice and charred. But like I said, it's not like all crumpled up. It still has some structure to it. So we'll come over here. So a few different birds. Move this out of the way. So these are some rotisserie chickens, smaller, more of that fryer size. They're brined in a basically salt water overnight. And then we have a rub of some herbs and garlic powder and onion powder. Put them in the rotisserie. They spin. I'm sure most of you have gotten a rotisserie chicken before. Much easier to take apart, so you can almost break them apart with your hands. You don't even need tools. Here, roaster-sized chicken that I put in a cast iron pan, seasoned it, put some fennel and herbs in the cavity, put some onions, carrots, fennel, and herbs, and a little bit of water. I and some stock because I have the stock going, and I just use that to baste it. This was in the oven, 375 for about an hour and a half. It looks great. So what I'm going to do is start to get into some other dishes. I'm going to move these over, and we'll cut this one up. We'll cut these two up, and then I'll kind of show you how to use some of the cooked meat and some of our other dishes, and then we'll come back and finish the barbecue and the mustard chicken. I'm going to check the mustard chicken before I go over there. I can show you.
We have someone saying, I actually once deboned a chicken to make a boneless chicken roast. A lot of work, but turned out great in the end.
Yeah, so fully deboned chicken takes a little bit of work. That may be maybe part 2, phase 2 of this class, because there's a lot of fun stuff you can do with it. So this is looking really good. Our breasts, when you leave the rib bone in, kind of keeps the structure. It's not super flat, but we got that nice mustard and herb crust on the top. Looking good. There's going to be lots of flavor on there. It's going to give it just a little poke. It's almost done. I'm going to put it back in, and I should be able to show you this before we're done. Also here, I'll try to tilt it from when I broke down some of these chickens earlier, and with a lot of the veggies, stems, and whatnot, made a nice stock that's been going for about 2.5, 3 hours. Poultry stocks, chicken, turkey, really after 3-4 hours max, you've pretty much extracted everything you're going to extract. So whereas beef stock and other larger bones, it could take 10, 12, 15 hours to really simmer it and extract all the flavor and all that good stuff out of the bones. Whereas poultry, there's not as much like collagen and big bones. It only takes a few hours max, and you've pretty much got everything you need out of it. All right, let's bring some of these over.
Someone has asked, any ideas for the rib besides going in the stock pot?
The rib of the chicken?
I think so.
Yeah.
The rib.
There's not much on the ribs, like the rib meat. If you look at this, other than stock, I mean, if you see there's a lot of meat left on it, you can pull it out of the stock and pick that meat for soup. That would be my only real suggestion, or leave it on. Just leave it on the breast. But it's not like a pork rib where it's kind of a byproduct of the butchering process, but there's enough meat where you can make it into something super yummy.
Yeah.
The chicken ribs, there's not much you can do because the bones, the actual rib bones, are super, super tiny and fine. So and they're super sharp. So not really something you want to, mess around with too much. All right.
All the tools that you see there have been washed and sanitized, and it's a new cutting board.
Thanks.
Because I know someone will ding me on it. They're all clean.
All right, so I'm just going to get some veggies. I have some veggies that I pre-put in this pot for the soup. So I'm going to get that going so we can get our chicken noodle soup going. So we'll get that on.
And we are using our new induction cooktop, and I read that they can interfere with microphones. So if we start using this and all of a sudden the sound is awful, we will switch to our other hot plate. Someone asks, if you don't have a grill, as I live in an apartment, how would we bake it instead of grilling?
How would you bake the thighs? Pretty much similar to the other one. I would season it up with whatever sort of barbecue rub that you wanted. Still do the same marinade. You can broil it on high to get some color, and then just turn the heat down and just cook it out until it's done. Or they do sell, for indoors, you could buy a grill pan, but they can be messy at times. So I would recommend a broil, get some color and caramelization on the outside, then switch it to like 350 or even a little lower and let it slow cook till it's cooked through. And you should get, you won't get that smoky, charry white flavor, but you'll still get some good color. It'll kind of burn some of the spices on the top and give you some of that charcoal-y feel.
Everything looks delicious so far, someone says.
Oh, nice.
And for the person asking for the recipes, yes, the recipes were attached to the email that had the link to access this class. If you can't find it or if you think it went to your spam, email me and let me know, and I can send them to you again. But yes, the recipes have been attached to every email that has come out from me, so just look for that one.
All right, so just gonna move rotisserie chickens. We'll do these first. They're easy. So chickens, we sell a lot of chickens here at the market, so we buy them pre-trussed or pre-tied. They have this little elastic, as I'm sure some of you have seen. So I just take the scissor off. Generally, if you just cut 1 or 2 spots, it'll just wind itself off.
Luckily, the sound still sounds fine, so I don't think we have a problem.
Oh, good. Like I said, you could do this pretty much with the whole thing with scissors. If you don't have scissors or are more comfortable with the knife, that's fine too. So these are good. Let's put this over here. So same, everything's tighter. It's tied nice and tight. As you'll see, this is tied a little looser, and I'll explain that when we get to that one in a minute. Just for these cook for so long, that it's nice to have it tight. It helps keep it a little bit more moist in the interior. With the larger bird, it's a little different. So for these, as I mentioned, you can just, same thing. We're gonna go down, take the legs off. You'll see these, they're not super warm because I brought them out from downstairs. So if they were warmer, they would pull apart a little easier. So I'm gonna use the knife just to help out, because we don't want to break the skin, because if you pull too hard with your hands, the skin will rip. And on a cooked bird, you can't fix it like the raw one and put it back where it was. But when you get down to this part, you really don't need the knife. You'll see it just sort of peels right off. And we can pick up some of that extra skin. I'm just going to place it over here. Same over here. Just going to gently come down with my hand and pull it right off. The wings, the same. Generally, they'll come right off with your hand. Or if you're feeling like heavy-handed, you could just kind of use the scissors as a guide, and the scissors will work.
Someone's asked, can we use Instant Pot to make the stock? Have you ever done chicken
I think
stock?
you can. Okay. Yeah, for sure. For sure. So you got your back here. How do you get that off? I just take the scissors. I go down the side. I just cut right through the side. Go to the other side. Cut right through the side. And the back will come right off. And this is where I told you we get to as far as the inside of the breastbone. If you had the raw chicken and you took the back off and wanted to leave the rib bone on, because you'll see that sometimes when you go into the store, the rib bone is attached. So you have the chicken here. You'll take your knife and right here at the bridge, you'll just make a little incision. Sometimes if it's a raw and it's a larger chicken, you would just take the big chef knife and just kind of cut right through that plate bone. And you kind of just give the knife a tap and you'll see it'll crack. And then once you crack it, it just breaks apart. And then once it's broken, you go right down the center, and then you have half and half.
Bone-in chicken breast.
Yes. We'll also put this over here in the stock. You can still use this for stock. Just be mindful if you're going to use cooked chicken, something you've already seasoned up into your stock. It's most likely going to make it a little cloudier. So if you want this nice, clear, brothy chicken noodle soup, I would recommend not putting cooked chicken in there. And also just make sure you don't over season it, because you have all these seasoning and spices. So if you put this in kind of after, it may make it a little too salty. So let's put that over there.
Someone's asked, what would be the difference when you were describing cooking the chicken in the oven between broiling first and baking versus the baking first and then broiling to finish at the end?
Not too much. I find that if you want to emulate or reproduce a barbecue style, I would broil first, because it's a lot harder to get that sort of natural barbecue-y, charcoal-y after you've already baked it, and it's kind of the skin is already crisped up a little bit. You're basically just going to burn the skin instead of like caramelizing the skin. Whereas if you were roasting a chicken like this one here, you can see it.
Yep.
I would start it at the low heat first, and then if you tempt it and it's like, oh, it's at 160, 165, I'm going to take it out and let it rest, but it's still super pale. I must not have cooked it at a high enough temperature. Then I would broil it and just keep a close eye on it so you get that nice golden brown color. So that's the way I would sort of use that combo. And then also you could just do the traditional where you take the leg off, which is similar to what we did on the other one. You can do that with your hands. And then when you go to take the breast off, if you were just wanted a nice easy dinner without a lot of bones, you would just follow down and then it comes right off. You could keep, whether or not you wanted to keep the wing bone on or not, you would come in the back side and keep that on as well. And then skin on like that. Or we could take the wing off, just pull it off. And then we're going to use this maybe for some of the rotisserie or for some of the chicken noodle or the chilaquiles. So you could just, it's a lot easier. You could just do it with some hands, just take the skin off and then literally just go in, kind of get your fingers going and just start pulling meat off with your hands. And this is good for pulled chicken, for soup or other recipes.
Much easier when it's slightly cooled down.
Yeah. Just take a second to look at this. So whole chicken, very, very similar to this one. I'm going to use this one probably for the chicken noodle soup. So I'm just going to take all the skin off. I just wanted to show you that a lot of people, when you tie the chicken for roasting, a lot of people cinch it up really tight. And what I find is when you're roasting a chicken to eat, like a kind of like a turkey, you want it to be really moist. So you just want the breast cooked to like 165. Some people, if it's you've been cooking it for, it's a big one and they're cooking 2-3 hours, you take it out even a little earlier because you get the carryover cooking. But what happens is if it's tied too tight here, you have to cook it longer because this is so tight, it's almost sealing the bird right here and it makes it too thick. And then this area of the bird is bloody when you cut into it. Your breast is cooked and then people cut into here and they see blood and it's a little red in there and then everyone freaks out. So that's why when I'm roasting it, it may not look like super turkey beautiful, but your chicken is going to be cooked properly and it's going to be moist all the way through. So I think this still looks beautiful, but if I would have really cinched it down, the breast would have had to cook longer for this to cook here, and then we would have had to overcook meat. Questions about that? No? So I'm just going to say, peel this back. When I was a kid, I used to just eat that, but I'm not going to anymore.
You can save that for yourself. Okay.
Yeah.
We can do it
So,
off camera. It's fine.
Yeah, you'll see here as I pick in, you can look, you can see the juice. You can see it's not dry. It's super moist, that meat. So this is nicely cooked. There's a little pink here, but that's just from the bird. That's nothing. So when you see that, it's just from the bone. Sometimes you'll get a little pinky look there, but don't get worried about that. So nice moist bird. This is going to be great for our soup, which.
Do you have an idea of how long you cooked that and what size bird that is to get it so moist?
Yeah, so this is a roaster. So it's probably like a 3 to 5 pound bird. And I seasoned it, put the herbs in the cavity, put it in this cast iron with a little bit of water or stock and veggies. And it's cooked for about an hour and a half at 350. So veggies are looking good. They're cooked. It smells good in here. So I just turn this off. So, and this is a pretty quick chicken noodle soup. So can everyone see that, or should I move this?
That's not quite on camera yet.
All right, so I'm just going to pick the meat off. Let's put it on here.
I feel like it should be fine.
And then we're just going to pick, you can see that?
Yep.
We're going to take the meat off, depending on how much chicken you want in your chicken noodle. This. We're going to just pick all that meat, throw it over the veggies. We'll do a little more. And then this is looking great. Take a little more off.
Do you go with pretty much mostly white meat and chicken noodle soup? Or
You
would ever
could
add
you
that?
could do the leg if you wanted the darker meat. It's fine. This is so tender from this bird being cooked.
Yeah.
Really well. I think, and just for this purpose, we're looking good. So now what I'm going to do is my veggies are cooked. I put my chicken in. I'm going to go over here. If you want to move the camera.
Yep.
I'm just going to strain some of my stock into there because it's nice and hot. But if you had pre-cooked the stock, just because there's a lot of stuff in the stock pot, I just put a strainer over it and I'm going right out of the stock pot into the, I don't have to worry about picking up large veggies. I'm going to keep ladling till my chicken is covered. Obviously, if you pre-made the stock and freeze it or had in the refrigerator, you would just dump it in and bring it to a boil and you would be all set. Stock's looking great.
And if you're interested in making stock, but it's going to take you a while to get enough chicken parts, we do sell chicken backs from when we break down chickens here. We freeze them and sell them in just big packs, really cheap to make stock. So.
We got one piece of chicken that's taking a little longer. This chicken's nice and caramelized. I'm gonna ask Carrie while I'm over there to just come over and maybe just brush a little barbecue sauce on the top so we can finish that up. I'm gonna bring this over.
Okay.
Sorry, we're playing musical
That's good.
musical
Keeps
camera.
things exciting. Keeps things.
Yeah, we're just gonna bring this back up quickly. I have some pre-cooked noodles. It's gonna drop right in there.
Somebody's asked, should the internal temperature for cooked chicken be 160 degrees? I've always heard 165.
It's 165, but what you'll get is, and you could look at it, when you're cooking something for a long time in the oven, you always get a little bit of carryover because there's so much heat in the bird. So sometimes if you have a large bird or a turkey, sometimes people will take it out of the oven a few degrees lower because they know they're going to get a few degrees of carryover. But if you're not comfortable with that, I recommend 165. But sometimes, like I said, if it's a big bird and it's been cooking for a long time, you will get a few degrees of carryover.
All right, you want me to go do
And
the
something-
barbecue sauce or not yet?
Something like this, we're cooking it in the broth and bringing it up to a boil. So to keep it extra moist, I would take it out here earlier. So
Would you like the chicken to be barbecue sauce? Or
yeah,
not yet?
yeah, so I can stand the camera.
Yeah, good. Here.
So our noodle soup is looking good. I'm gonna be right back. Put some in a bowl here for Carrie. So you can see that was super fast, easy. And you got a nice fresh bowl of chicken noodle soup. Smells great. Put that over there. One of my favorites. Chicken chilaquiles. So get it in Mexico a lot for breakfast. You have to put a fried egg on top. This one we do for lunch here at the co-op on our hot buffet. But by all means, take this recipe and add a fried egg to the top for breakfast or even for lunch, and it's super tasty. So essentially what it is it's a tomato based. You could do green or red if you wanted like a green chili sauce or a tomato and red chili sauce. I did red sauce. The recipe's in the packet, so we got that moving. And then what we do is another super easy one that I love. Put some tortilla chips in a bowl. Can you do me a favor?
Yep.
And there's some goat cheese and herbs in the refrigerator.
Yep.
So I will take some of the rotisserie chicken because we have some of the rotisserie chicken. I'm just going to sprinkle some chicken on top and then dump the sauce over. You could put the chicken in the sauce as well, but since this chicken is warm, we'll just put some on top.
Yes, the chicken noodle soup recipe was in the email. And what I can do is tomorrow I'm going to send a survey link out and I can resend the email, the recipe packet in that same email, since it seems like maybe some people did not get it.
So we have our chicken over the tortillas. Gonna just take a little bit of red onion, make a couple of thin slices, super thin, not a ton. We got a little bit of cilantro here. Just going to chop some of that up because we're going to garnish it with arugula, which is a nice touch. What we're going to do is we'll save that. Our sauce is hot. So what you do is you take the sauce and you dump it right over the tortilla. It's going to soften the tortilla up a little bit. You can eat it with a fork, with your hands. Super tasty. And then what we do is put some of this onion on there, some of the cilantro. Then we take some crumbled goat cheese, nice touch. A little white. And then, sorry, I like to put a little arugula on the top. It's gonna make it a little healthy, right? Put a little bit of arugula on the top. And there we have some chicken chilaquiles. Looks good. And this is
translate to anything.
And then this is one of the, you know, I've never really looked it up. You could probably Google it quickly.
Yeah.
I think it does. I may have done it once before. If you like it saucier, if you've had this before, you can just make this, you could add a little stock or a little water to thin it out if you like the sauce a little saucier and a little brothier on the bottom, or you can keep it a little thicker depending if you want to eat it with your hands or a fork and knife. So there's one of the fun recipes there. So we're going to take that off.
Everything I'm Googling is just describing the dish rather than giving a translation. Yeah. Chili water. Maybe.
So here is the mustard cream sauce, also in the packet. So we're just going to heat that up. I'm going to bring over, if you want to swing the camera over.
Yep.
So barbecue chicken's looking good. This one's got some good char on it. Get the barbecue sauce on there. Looking good. So we'll take that, stack it on this plate, get a little barbecue. So some good barbecue there. Then our roasted breasts with the mustard crusts are out of the oven. So I'm just going to take them, put them on this platter, kind of offset them. And then we got that grilled asparagus. Whoops. Put some of those on the top. Bring this over. So barbecue's looking good. I mean, if you wanted to garnish it, you know, just for garnish sake, you put a little cilantro on the top. It'll probably wilt down quickly because it's nice and hot. But we got some nice barbecue chicken. And for here, we'll just heat up this sauce.
So as you can probably tell, we're coming towards the end of our class. Chef Michael's very great about fitting things in exactly an hour, and I always leave plenty of time for questions. So if there are questions at this point about what you witnessed with the breakdown process, any of the recipes, please go ahead and put those into the Q&A box, and we will leave that open for a few minutes in case you're frantically typing and making sure that your question gets sent in. But we are coming towards the end of class.
Yeah, and feel free to shoot me an email. My contacts on City Market website. Happy to answer any questions. Doesn't need to be chicken related.
Yeah, or you can always, everybody has my email from the class link. You can always send it to me and I can pass it along to Chef Michael if that would be easier as well.
Yeah, 1 sec. I'm just gonna move this over here. Bring some of these dishes back so you can see them. Good, you can see it?
Your soup bowl. Yeah.
That was for you,
That's
Carrie. You
perfect.
didn't have any?
I will. I don't want to eat while on microphone. No one needs to hear that slurping noises.
So-
in their ears.
Mustard cream sauce over the top of everything. It's a nice dish for people to share. Looks good. So, roasted chicken, mustard, herbs Provence, grilled asparagus. You could use any veggie you want. You don't even need to use veggie, but it's nice this time of year. It's a nice dish. The chilaquiles, like I said, a little fried egg and avocado, be amazing on there. Just straight up grilled chicken with barbecue sauce, and then a nice, fast, easy chicken noodle soup.
And we have the rest of that roasted chicken to just pull.
We got enough chicken here for
We're
a
gonna
long
feed the
time.
entire department with
Yeah.
chicken today.
Yeah, and I'm gonna take the rest of that chicken, throw it in the stock, add a little bit more water, and we're gonna make some more stock
Yeah.
too. So,
Well, I'm not seeing any other questions coming in at
Yeah.
this point, so maybe we'll let everybody get to their evening plans. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Big thank you to Chef Michael.
yeah, thank you so much for joining us. It's always a pleasure. Like I said, feel free to contact us with any questions anytime.
Yeah, and hopefully this was a whole lot of inspiration for your next chicken recipe attempt. So thank you all so much. Enjoy the rest of your evenings and hopefully, oh, we have a question. Haha,
Oh, nice.
right at the very end. What ratio of salt to water do you use when brining the whole chicken? And then do you still salt the chicken when seasoning it at the end?
We don't salt the chicken at the end. For the ratio for we make the brine in big batches, but on the safe side, I could send you the recipe if you email Carrie or myself. I can send you the exact brine recipe that we use. But on the safe side, probably around for a gallon of water, which would do like a, 1 or 2 chickens, depending on how many you wanted to put in there, a big one or a small one. I would do about 3/4 a cup of salt. Any herbs or spices that you would want to put into the brine. Sometimes we put a dash of sugar in there just to kind of sweeten it up a bit. That's optional.
Great.
Yeah,
All right.
or cider. You could put some cider instead of water if you wanted to cider brine it. It will change the color of the chicken a little bit. Just be aware of that. And it will brown a lot faster because there's a lot more sugar and sweetness in that sort of brine. But yeah, I can send you the exact brine that we use for our rotisserie chickens. It's really good. We get a lot of compliments on them.
Great. Thank you so much, everybody. I hope everybody gets a chance. And if you do make these recipes or even just break down a chicken, send us photos. We love seeing when people take what they learn at our classes and do it in their home kitchens. So I'm going to go ahead and end the live event. Thank you all so much and enjoy the rest of your evenings.